Hi everyone. So the story that we are going to discuss is Naguib Mahfouz, Zaabalawi, and the story. Let me give you a little bit of context because the three texts we are studying might be post-colonial, but they belong to three very different geographic regions. In order to understand Naguib Mahfouz, it is important to understand a little bit about the Egyptian history. Naguib Mahfouz is a Nobel Prize winning author, and he writes from the point of view of ancient Egyptians. And he incorporates all that in his stories, the concept of mysticism, Sufism, definitely Islamic religious metaphors, religious imagery. And this story is set in Cairo, and the story begins with an unnamed narrator who remains unnamed throughout, who is recalling his father and recalling a song that he heard about someone called Sheikh Zaabalawi. And this particular person, a saint, in Islam, a saint is a religious person, but not religious in the dogmatic sense of the way. It deals with another kind of, or another aspect of Islam, where you basically develop a relationship with God on the basis of love, on the basis of understanding, and on the basis of basically giving away the worldly things in life and totally becoming a part of the godly culture. And this person apparently cures diseases. And the unnamed narrator of the story, living in Cairo, suffers from an illness which cannot be cured by any doctors. And what happens is that he remembers his father telling him that this Sheikh Zabalawi had been able to cure him, and he's a wonderful, very blessed person. And so he decides to search for this person. The rest of the story is a quest for this person. Now, what I would like you to focus on a little bit here is that Egypt is also a post-colonial country. Egypt came under the Ottoman Empire, but with the First World War, and Egypt also became part of the British colonies. And because of the Western influences, there were again lots of atrocities, not in the same way, but in many ways about what is going on, the kind of way people suffered, the kind of creation of this elite in also people who were rich, people who collaborated with the colonizers. So all these problems, as well as the nationalist independence movements, were going on in Egypt as well. And Naguib Mahfouz lived through all of them, and he saw the hollowness of society, and he saw the hollowness of religious institutions, the dogmatic religious institutions, and he criticizes them in the story as well. And so we can look at the story as both a literal narration of events, but we also need to look at the multiple layers that the story presents. The first layer, of course, is the fact that the narrator is unnamed. So the narrator what can he represent? He remains unnamed. He's in search of something. His disease is never mentioned. So if we can look at him as a person, or we can look at him as a type, in which case he can be any one of us. A person searching for truth, and searching and for a truth that is elusive, that he tries to find in different areas of life without being successful, because we have our own subjective realities and truths. And so this quest becomes a religious, spiritual, mystic quest. And so one of the strong themes that you see in the first layer is definitely the idea this story is symbolizing our life, or the story is symbolizing the human need for hope, human need for quest. Definitely that is there. On the second level, when it talks about the different people that the unnamed narrator encounters in his quest to reach the truth, they belong to different fields in our world. The first person is a lawyer, a religious lawyer, and he does not seem to be a person who should be representing religion, because he is completely engulfed by materialness, by materiality of things. And then the second person that he meets is a person who sells theological and religious books. But the place that he lives in is extremely old, dilapidated, completely destroyed in many ways. And he is immersed in commercialism, in selling. So you see this disparity, and these people have not met Sheikh Zaabalawi for a very long time, and they say, yes, we met him, but we kind of lost him, which kind of shows how the story symbolism and metaphor keeps building up and keeps going forward. And slowly he moves on to the magistrate, a person in the administration, a person who basically devises and plans things in a systematic way, and he even draws a map for our unnamed narrator to help him locate Zaabalawi. But again, you notice that the magistrate is not able to help him as well. He seems to be getting warmer in his search when he moves towards the artisan circle. He moves towards the calligrapher. He moves towards the composer. And lastly, he moves towards a person of private means who is drunk and who makes him drink too. And that is the one, that dream in thing, it becomes the small quasi encounter with the what do we call it? Yes, with Sheikh Zaabalawi. So let's look at the themes a little bit so that it helps you understand the whole idea that is being presented in the story. So the first thing that I would like you to look at is this incident on page number 866, where his father, the unnamed narrator's father, is talking about the sheikh. And the sheikh, he says, and sheikh, the word sheikh is used in multiple ways in Egypt. It can mean a designation in the sense of like, or a holy position within the Islamic order. So a person can be called sheikh that way, or simply a sheikh can register something like a title. So his father says, may his blessings descend upon you. He is a true saint of God, a remover of worries and troubles. Were it not for him, I would have died miserably. Now, I would like you to take a minute and look and notice the words. He's a true saint of God. He does not say that he is a religious cleric. He does not say that he is learned in the religious arts. He says he's a true saint of God, which means in Islamic ideology, one says that one is a Sufi. He's talking about the tradition of Sufism. And the tradition of Sufism, a Sufi is God's friend, not a subject only, and somebody who loves God so much that they leave the material world completely and help his creation. Sufism teaches love and basically works on the concept, an Arabic concept called Wahdatul Wujud, which means everything combines into, and we have to, like, a person is a drop of water and has to rejoin the complete cumulative ocean at the end. And so what they do is they spend their lives helping others, irrespective of religion, irrespective of anything. And this might be a very interesting thing for you to notice, because that is very different from the picture of Islam that is being presented in the media all around, because that is a very, very convoluted, very, very twisted kind of picture that you will see. And a picture that is developed by extremists. So the Sufism that is being presented here, he talks about he's a very true saint of God, a person who removes the worries of others. And then he says that he decides to find Sheikh Zaabalawi and decides to go to Sheikh Kamar, another person. This is the lawyer, and now this person deals with the religious law. But when he goes in there, he notices that he's in a resplendent office, and he's thinking that this person might bring him business, so he's very friendly, which tells you that he is talking about the materialism and the fact that the search for truth probably is very far away from him, because remember, Zaabalawi is a metaphor for multiple things. You can read the story and it will probably give you your own interpretations as well. So he moves there. He is directed towards another building, and I would like to read out to you a few lines from the description of this building where he is being directed to, that this is the last place that Zaabalawi lived. So I went to the Begawi residence. This is on page number 867. I went to the Bergavi residence, which was situated in a thickly populated quarter. I found that time had so eaten at the building that nothing was left um, of it save an antiquated facade and a courtyard that, despite being supposedly in charge of a caretaker, was being used as a rubbish dump. A small, insignificant fellow, a mere prologue to a man, was using the covered entrance as a place for sale of old books on theology and mysticism. Now remember, he uses the term theology and mysticism. This person is selling these books, which means, but he himself is not doesn't seem to be informed about it. He says that, oh yes, there was a time I knew Zaabalawi, but I don't meet him now. Okay, so remember, he's moving through the world of law, of jurisprudence, and then he's moving to the world of commerce, looking, passing through life, trying to find truth, trying to find maybe God, um, through all these means, and he is unable to locate him. Now also look that the building is completely dilapidated. The building is completely is turned into a rubbish dump, which tells you the situation of the commercial world a little bit, right? In terms of like finding any truth. So that those are the things that I would like you to take into consideration. Also, remember that this mysticism in the story, Mahfouz combines it with spirituality and mysticism. So you will see almost mystical experiences and elements imbued with a very realistic representation of Cairo, representation of what Cairo city looked like, all the places, the city, the mosques, the the buildings, the businesses, everything. And now if we move on to the next page, on page number 868, he finds out on not being able to find Zaabalawi in that place. He decides to go to the magistrate, and he talks to him about Zaabalawi, and the magistrate draws a map and says, why don't you go about it in a more systematic way? And so he draws out a map, which is a very, very administrative thing to do. But can you reach God through a more systematic way? Now the first mention of a prayer comes here. If you notice on page 868, he says, may God come to your aid. And you will notice that this person is slightly friendlier. As you move around, the people start becoming kinder, a little friendlier. And then he moves from there, he goes through the marketplaces, the map, he sees everybody, he sees the all right, I'll read this out because this is very important. It will be helpful in understanding. On page 868, may God come to your aid, but why don't you go about it systematically? He spread out a sheet of paper on the desk and drew on it with unexpected speed and skill until he had made a full plan of the district, showing all the various quarters, lanes, alleyways, and squares. He looked at it admiringly and said, these are the dwelling houses. Here is the quarter of the perfumers. Here the quarter of coppersmiths and the mosque, the police and fire stations. The drawing is your best guide. Look carefully in the cafes, the places where the dervishes perform their rites. Remember, a dervish is an Arabic or Urdu word. It basically means a person, a beggar. Sufis are associated with beggars because they give up all worldly possessions and they intermingle with the poorest people to help them. So this is one of the things that you will notice about here. The dervishes perform their rites, the mosques and prayer rooms, and the Green Gate. It's a famous place in Cairo, for he may well be concealed among the beggars and be indistinguishable from them. Actually, I myself haven't seen him for years, having been somewhat preoccupied with the cares of the world. Now, it appears as soon as you become involved in the cares of the world, you seem to kind of lose sense of your own identity in this particular sphere. So this is one of the things he's pointing towards, and I would like you to take notice of. From there on, he goes to a calligrapher, and the calligrapher is a person who writes in very beautiful, embellished handwriting, basically Quranic verses. And this calligrapher again directs him to a composer, and they keep mentioning, yes, he's alive, but I don't know if he'll come or he'll not. And if you notice on page number 870, when he's with the music composer, you'll notice with the artisans, it appears that Sheikh Zaabalawi is closer to the artisans than to the people who belong to the religious or law or commercial sphere, which shows a little bit of what Naguib Mahfouz is doing here, right? Because he's trying to show the more worldly we get, the more materialistic we get, the far further we are from the truth. But he's also harshly critiquing these things. He's critiquing the person of law who is only interested in money. He's critiquing the selling of religious ideas and material, the selling of knowledge, and of a person who is himself completely bereft of anything that is authentic. Then he basically comments on the lack of know-how of the magistrate, in terms of like he doesn't know where Zaabalawi is, because he says it, oh, I don't know, I am maybe go about it systematically. There is a system, but is the system actually being followed? And then as soon as he comes to the calligrapher, he finds out that the calligrapher says that his inspiration for that beautiful writing comes from Sheikh Zaabalawi, that he inspired him, and the composer says that he composed his most beautiful tunes with the help of Sheikh Zaabalawi, or the inspiration. So you see, he is this person. The name Sheikh Zaabalawi can mean multiple things. It can be a search for truth, it can be a connection to God, because in Islamic faith, the connection to God is direct. There can never be a priest or someone in the middle to show you the way. So he's one of those things that and a lot of emphasis in Sufi tradition is on a human to human connection, helping human beings, finding new, forging new paths. So if you notice this person, the composer, he says, um, do those who need him suffer as I do? The narrator asks that if I'm looking for him, so is everyone who is looking for him suffering? And he responds, the composer responds, such suffering is part of the cure, that because of the suffering you realize that you're getting closer to him, which also gives you a little bit of an idea that he's not really completely talking about a real literal person. They're talking about something that is searching for, the concept of hope. And then there is another line that I would like you to keep in mind on page number 871. He says, he is the epitome of things musical. He has an extremely beautiful speaking voice, and you have only to hear him to want to burst into song and to be inspired to creativity, which gives you a very interesting idea of, what this person represents, but also of the Islamic ideology as well, the idea of creativity and the idea of what that of music, which is inherently part of the soul, and how does Sufi faith look at it. So then he is from there directed to the person who is a person of private means, which means he has money and he's there, and there he is forced to drink, although he doesn't drink. And while he is drinking, he goes into a dream state, which is very important, because think about it. He says that I dreamed I was in an immense garden surrounded on all sides by luxuriant trees, a very peaceful scenario, right? And the sky was nothing but stars seen between the entwined branches, all enfolded in an atmosphere like that of sunset, or a sky overcast with cloud. I was lying on a small hammock of jasmine petals, more of which fell upon me like rain, while the lucent sprays of a fountain unceasingly sprinkled the crown of my head and my temples. I was in a state of deep contentedness, something which had been missing from his life, remember? Of ecstatic serenity. An orchestra of wobbling and cooing played in my ear. There was an extraordinary sense of harmony between me and my inner self, and between the two of us and the world, everything being in its rightful place, without discord or distortion. In the whole of the world, there was no single reason for speech or movement, for the universe moved in a rapture of ecstasy. This lasted but a short while. When I opened my eyes, consciousness struck me like a policeman's fist. Now, this is essential because it seems that what he had been looking for, he finds it within a dream, an alcohol-induced dream, which is very, very far away from the Islamic faith. So that tells you a little bit about what he's seeing, that it is not the ritual, dogmatic religion that brings you closer to an understanding or brings you closer to God, but it is actually in essence, being with people and looking for truth, and being helpful to God's people, which actually brings you closer to Him. So he is definitely, as part of a theme, Najib Mahfouz is criticizing the dogmatic ways in which religion works in this story. So the themes that I would like you to, and also take a minute and look, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting myself here, but at the end, he finds out there are a few things that tell you that he has in his dream state met Sheikh Zaabalawi. He says, um, yes, I was about, what a pity. He was sitting on this chair beside you the whole time. He was playing with a string of jasmine petals, and remember, he saw jasmine petals in his dream. He had around his neck a gift from one of his admirers. Then, taking pity on you, he began to sprinkle some water on your forehead to bring you around all the things that he saw in the dream. So, this means that there was a meeting eventually. So, it seems he came very close to it, and then the search continues. The story remains open ended. Now, so what I would like you to look at is the way he uses the story, the mystical, magical elements, the whole ideology of Egypt, the whole background of Egypt, the different phases of social life, law, commerce, the artisan circle, everything. So look at it from if you look at the theme of quest, religious, spiritual, and mystical, and the kind of social populations which are closest to God and the kind which are furthest that are shown here. And what does that imply? Because he's critiquing the corruption through it. When we say we're close to God, it means that there is less corruption. That is one of the things he's pointing towards. And when we say that somebody's further away from God, there's a lot more materialism. So he is critiquing materialism. He is critiquing institutions like law, institutions like the administrative government functions for not doing their jobs properly. He's talking about a lot of things, and he is showing this quest, this religious spiritual journey. And then he also, the concept of religion as experience rather than institution is something that is present throughout the story. And then there's the constant idea of hope and hopelessness, because hope seems to be something, this whole existential idea that, well, who are we? The search for truth, search for an identity is present throughout the story, in constantly intermingled with hopelessness. And then there is the concept of spirituality versus materialism, disease versus cure, subjective mystical experiences. So keep a look at them, think about those things, and I hope you really enjoyed the not only the setting of the story, but also the story itself and what it means, and why we call it a post-colonial text, because it is talking about all these issues after the colonizers had left. And Najib Mahfouz had a lot of impact of the Britishers and the freedom struggles, and those things result in corruption and society's fragmentation, and you will see them here, maybe less as compared to Naguib with Yango, but definitely present within the story. Okay, see you in the next lecture with our last story.